Flip Aguilera of Sweat Nation. Flip, why don't you go ahead and take this bad boy away?
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me clearly? All right, so my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and yes, my middle name is actually Awesome. And let's jump into the story already. So the universe, the source, God, whatever you want to call it, saw it fit to put me in line to come to this place on December 18th, 1978 at 1:46 p.m. All right, that's my 6 minutes. I'm kidding. So let me take you to my 20s. So in my 20s, my life was, I worked for a liquor distributor. So my life was full of alcohol and partying during the day. At nighttime, I used to have a poker business that I used to run. So my life was full of alcohol and gambling at night. And on the weekends, I was a DJ in South Beach. So when I tell people that my life was a party for a decade, it was an absolute party for a whole decade. And everything you think that a party life is all about, check that and times it times 10, and that's what my life was like. So that's the situation that I was coming from in my 20s. Now, the catalyst that was that created the change in my life was when I got divorced in my late 20s. A lot of people, when they get divorced, what they want to do is go party and go have a good time and let's go to the bar and let's go to the club. And I didn't want to go to any of those places because that's where everybody that both my wife and I knew were there. My old life was there, and that's just not where I wanted to go anymore. And little did I know that an invitation to go mountain biking from a friend of mine who's actually a DJ as well, named Jimmy, to a place called Markham Park in Florida, was going to be the choice that was going to completely change my whole life and change the direction of my life 180 degrees. And what happened there is, Jimmy invited me to go mountain biking, and he didn't tell me. He's just like, oh, let's go biking. And I thought in my head, oh, we're going to go to a park. We're going to ride some bike. Then after, we'll smoke some weed. We'll drink some beer. And I don't even like beer. And whatever, we'll just hang out. When I get there, they're like, oh, here's this bike, here's a helmet. We're going to be going into these trails. They're going to be awesome. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're going into these trails. So we go into the trails, and within a minute, I was already like, I'm going to fall and break something in this place that these people brought me to. And I wasn't ready for this at all. So they finally stop and take a break, and they're like, oh, so what do you think? What do you think? And I was like, well, I'm going to fall and break myself, and you didn't tell me this is what I was going to be doing, and now I'm scared and I don't know what to do with myself. And they're like, well, you can leave if you want, but that was just the warm-up. And I was like, that was just the warm-up? Are you kidding me? I'm going to die here. And they're like, again, you could leave, but we're going to keep going. And of course, I had to keep going because I didn't even know how to get out of there. So we finally get out of there, and at the end, they're laughing at me because, I was freaking out. And that day on the way home, I thought to myself, I cannot let these guys laugh at me like this. So from that day onward, I kept going back every day. Now, from that day to a year later, I went from being a complete novice to racing mountain bikes. So that was the progress that I had during that year. And I didn't know that choice was going to be the beginning of mindfulness. But if you think about it, when you go mountain biking, you have to be present. Because if you let your mind wander, you're going to wander into a tree, you're going to wander into a rock, you're going to wander into something that you don't like. Even if you pay attention, you might run into those things. So if you're not paying attention, you're definitely going to run into those things. Now, 3 months into that journey of getting better at mountain biking, I had lost a lot of weight. And not that I was even overweight, but I lost 30 pounds. I went from 180 to like 150. I look at myself in the mirror one day living in Miami, and I'm like, it's cool that I lost all this weight and I have these legs, but my upper body looks horrible. I look like a Tour de France rider, and I don't want to look like that. So I went to my mom's house because my stepdad, ever since he's been in my life, he's always been into bodybuilding and exercising. And today, if we still go into my mom's garage, it's a gym. And funny enough, Samantha's been there. If you go to my garage, it's a gym. So that's pretty awesome that he was able to pass that on to me. So I decided, let me go back to mom's house where I can work out in the gym and start building my muscles. In a few months, I start looking amazing. And again, this is Miami. Miami is a very vanity culture. It's where I'm from, but it is what it is. People like to look good there because it's hot and you don't have to wear any clothes. So I'm looking at myself, I'm starting to get, you know, good biceps, triceps. And that's the thing. What does a guy in his late 20s do? He works out his biceps, his triceps, his abs, his chest. I wasn't thinking of the whole. So a few months into that, my right shoulder decides it doesn't want to work anymore. Like I could barely lift it without excruciating pain, and it was waking me up every night. So it was affecting my quality of life and my getting ready to race mountain bikes and all this stuff. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor tells me, we're going to give you a cortisone shot. I take the cortisone shot, I wait a few days, pain goes away, and I go right back to doing exactly what I was doing before. So a few weeks after that, my left shoulder decides to go out, and I go back to the doctor again, and he tells me the same thing. We're going to give you the cortisone shot, but if you come back, we are going to have to open you up and see what's going on. So I didn't want to get opened up. So I did what a lot of people do, and that is I went to Dr. Google. The problem with Dr. Google is that Dr. Google gives you good information, bad information, misinformation, and I stuck with it. And over time, I was able to figure out why my shoulder was messed up. And after these 30 seconds, you guys can ask me why my shoulder was messed up, and we can get into more of my journey. So that's what I got for now.
Very good. Thank you so much, Flip. I'd like to start with how'd those cortisone shots go?
Well, the cortisone shots went well in that the pain went away. But what I've learned over the years of being a holistic health coach is that pain is a teacher. And if you try to shut it up, it's only going to come back louder and more intense. So the relationship that we have with pain in our culture is something that I work with clients, because our culture is definitely always trying to tell pain to go away. And pain is not meant to go away. If you really think about it, pain is ubiquitous. Pain is with you in the good times. Pain is with you in the bad times. The thing is, we intuitively know the difference between a good ouch and a bad ouch, but ouch is always there.
That is so true. Thank you so much, Flip. Hey, community, this is our time to ask questions and pick Flip's brain. So we've started our 20-minute Q&A. Who's got the second question for Flip? We got anything yet? All right, Brandy, what do you got?
So, Flip, obviously, you're very adventurous and very outdoorsy and love to be active. Explain how that whole journey has brought you to what you're doing right now and what you're doing right now.
All right. So that journey is what actually brought me to Colorado Springs, right? Because there's plenty of mountains here. People are like, how did you mountain bike in Florida? And I'm like, look, Florida's definitely flat, but it's a different style of riding in that you have to be more agile. But nevertheless, falling on a boulder here in Colorado sucks. Falling on limestone in Florida sucks more because limestone is sharp. But, you know, being outside is what grounded me. Being outside is what helped me find myself, and being out on that mountain bike and being out in those trails. So I really attribute being outside and being in nature to part of what having a holistic system of health is all about.
I love it, Flip. Hey, Facebook is commenting on you right now. Scott Runyon says, as a physical therapist, I am absolutely cringing right now. And then Jen Vinatieri Mole says, embrace the pain. Thanks, Flip. Next up, we have Kim, who has a question. Kim, we can't seem to hear you. As Kim's getting her audio sorted out, let's move on to Rich, and then we'll come back to Kim. Rich, you're on mute.
I was just waiting to get it off. Sorry. Hey, so Flip, awesome what you do. I love your story. My question for you is, in this environment, for people that may just be moving here similar to you in the past, what would you recommend to them for really getting into a good routine in a healthy way?
All right. So how do we get into a good routine in a healthy way? So part of my journey led me to realizing that it's our stories that we tell about ourselves and others and everything around us that create the reality that we live in. So what stories are you telling yourself about things? Are they serving you? Are they not serving you? If they're not serving you, you need to realize that those stories are a habit. And the only way that you can break a habit is to become aware that you even have it. And then once you realize that you have it, is kind of not to get upset at yourself because you have it. It's to get excited because you realize that you have it. And when you have that excitement, that moment of excitement is the moment where you can decide to do something else and start to develop who you want to be. So that would be how I answered that. Thank you for your question, Rich.
Nice. Okay. Kim's having some technical difficulties, so she went ahead and threw her question out there. She would like to know, what are you doing now?
Well, right now I'm trying to build my business here in Colorado Springs. I am sitting here at the Garden of the Gods Country Club Resort because I have a part-time gig here. So that's where I am sitting, looking directly at Pikes Peak and Garden of the Gods. It is a breathtaking thing to look at every single day. So I am trying to build my business by getting out there, meeting people like you, finding out where those pain points are, because remember, pain is ubiquitous, and change those pain points from pains that are bad to pains that are good, right? Because when you work out, you get sore, that's pain, but that's a pain that's building, right? As opposed to if you have a hurt shoulder, a hurt back, a hurt knee, a hurt hip, that pain that's telling you you can't move, that's the type of pain you want to try to move away from. So I'm doing that. Teaching jujitsu also is something that I've picked up in the past few years, which I love. I love it so much. It is such an amazing foundation for creating good people when you teach it from the standpoint of learning how to protect yourself and learning how to protect others. So I'm doing that. I've started a few groups so that I can, bring community together so that we can all hang out, get to know each other, help each other reach our goals. And that's basically what I'm doing. I'm trying to get people to take my assessments. So if you're interested in that, take my information and we can talk in the future.
What is your information, Flip?
My information is I am the founder of Sweat Nation. You could go to sweatnationworld.com. There's a whole bunch of information there about all the things. And you can even give me a call. My number is 786-255-2044. My email is flipaaa@gmail.com. So I'm very easy to reach. I don't try to make myself hard to find. So yeah, you can contact me on all those places.
Next up, we've got a great question from the amazing Shelly Hermanson on Facebook. She asks, what is a holistic life coach?
Okay, so a holistic health coach, wellness coach is somebody who's going to try to figure out what is the issue that you're having. We want to focus on that issue. And once we get it fixed, we want to integrate it back into the whole. So that's one thing. Another thing is, again, the stories you're telling yourself about that thing. What are the emotional crutches that you're holding on to that may be raising your cortisol that are going to lead to a state of dis-ease? Things like that. So one story that I have is a client of mine that she lived in Boston during the summer, but she would come down to Florida during the winter. And a little bit about her is that her and her husband were part owners of the Florida Panthers hockey team. So what I'm trying to say with that is money was not an issue with them, right? And she had eczema. And remember, she lived in Boston, and Boston is a medical mecca. There's medicine everywhere in Boston at the cutting edge. And she had this eczema, and she'd been to a bunch of doctors. She got all the lotions and potions and all the things, and it would have some effect. Now, when I was taking my my precision nutrition certification, I was learning about a protocol called the autoimmune protocol. So she happened to be in Florida when I was going through that, and I asked her, I'm like, look, I don't know if what I'm reading is going to help you, but there's only one way to find out. I'm like, I haven't tried this protocol. You haven't tried this protocol. You're obviously having an autoimmune issue. How about we find 30 days, you pick it, and we'll both go on it together. We'll be accountability partners. I printed out a bunch of recipes for her. I got some, I made some food. She made some food. We traded, we did all these things. And in 30 days, she lost 12 pounds and her eczema was gone. So you see, find the issue and integrate it back into the whole. So that's an example of what a holistic health coach can do.
Wow, that's impactful. Thanks for sharing. Kelly Reeves has a question for you. Kelly, you want to ask it?
I do. So good morning. I'm just curious because, it's what you do sounds pretty amazing, but what kind of training did you need to get into this field?
Thank you for the question, Kelly. So I am very self-taught. Now, with that being said, I have an NSCA certification. I have a precision nutrition certification. I went to the University of Miami and did like an internship to coach athletes. I made a left turn after a while and got a financial consulting certification. And then the last certification I have is a holistic health coach certification from a place called the Czech Institute out of California. Now, again, with that said, I would like to say what I said in the beginning. I'm self-taught. I didn't need any of those certifications to tell me that I needed to do all that stuff. I just did it because we live in a world where people want to know that you've got these papers that say that you know something. But learning for me is just, it's who I am. I can't stop learning. And you know how they say knowledge is power? I don't believe that at all. I believe applied knowledge is power. So you can do all the learning you want. If you don't apply it and you don't practice using it and learning from it, then what's the point of having it? So when I learn something, I immediately want to see, well, first, how does it work with me? So that's why, like the example I gave of my client that I had from with the eczema, I did it with her because I never tried it. You know, a lot of people like to say, well, this works and the science says this and that says that. And I'm like, well, have you experienced it yourself? Because I used to be very much that way. When I got into this field, I was like, well, this is what the science says and this and this and that and that. And one of my mentors was like, have you tried it? Do you know firsthand what this may or may not do for you before you even start saying what the science says and what this and that says? And believe me, I love science. That's where we do the most learning, right? Is from reading, research, and all these things. So I am very much a hands-on. I want to get dirty into whatever it is I'm learning about so that I can figure it out for myself and then see how that same experiment might work for others.
That's wonderful. Looks like Brett Curtis has a question. Brett, you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah. Hey, Flip, how's it going? I'm curious about the jiu-jitsu. A lot of times there's a mental disconnect with, health and, what we want and then what we actually do. And I'm curious if the jiu-jitsu is kind of like bridge that. What kind of results have you attained from incorporating the martial arts into the health coaching?
Well, I think martial arts kind of has put it all together because it's everything that I do, but the martial arts component, and again, I race mountain bikes, which is a very intense thing, but the martial arts component really gives you the ability to practice staying calm while trying to overcome obstacles, which is what life is really all about. Because when you start to freak out and overexert yourself, you're going to run out of energy quickly, which is only going to tire you out, which is only going to make the obstacle even harder to overcome. So doing jiu-jitsu has really put into focus, how do you stay calm while somebody's trying to choke you out, break your arm, do whatever, and, stay calm enough that when the opportunity comes, so that when they give you the space, in a snap of a finger, you take advantage of it. So thank you for that question, Brett.
Nice, thank you.
I got a question for you, Flip. So it doesn't sound like the clients that you work with are short-sighted results. It's more long-term, mental, nutritional, physical. Talk about the process of working with you. Obviously, the assessment in the beginning, and then how long is that time frame working with the client? What does that kind of timeline look like for them?
Well, I like to say that every single client that I work with is a different puzzle to try to put together. Some puzzles are like the puzzles you get in kindergarten, which are really big pieces and you can kind of put them together pretty easily. Some other puzzles are 5,000 pieces, really small, and you have to have the patience to put the puzzle together. So there's no anybody being the exact same puzzle, if you know what I mean. So as you mentioned, I start with assessments because if we don't know where to start, how do we know where we're going? So you have people who they'll just pick you up and be like, oh well, let's go to the gym and let's do this and let's do that, and it's like, well, how do you know where to start? What's your movement like? What's your breathing like? What's your flexibility like? And again, what's your mindset like? What are the stories you're telling yourself about these things? Because look, I'm out here staring at Pikes Peak, and you know, Mount Everest is another Pikes Peak on top of Pikes Peak, which is amazing. The research that conclusively proves that exercise will make you emotionally, physically, and mentally stronger is not only higher than Pikes Peak and Mount Everest, but it probably goes to the moon and back. Now, with that said, what is the type of movement that the individual in front of me should be doing to get the most efficient results? Because it's not going to be the same for everybody. You know, if you're too tight and I go put you to do high intensity things, you're just going to get tighter. That's going to exacerbate whatever issues you're feeling, where maybe you need to loosen up some more. Maybe you need a little more mobility so that there's space in the system to move. Right. So again, we need to do the assessments, and I can't say that there's a specific timeline. I think the timeline is the rest of your life.
That's awesome. Hey, really quick, before I get into my question, just a couple Facebook comments to feed to you. Flip first, Samantha Sargent says, Flip is a great jujitsu instructor. So everybody take note. If you want to learn jujitsu, Flip's your guy.
Thank you, Samantha.
And then I think you say Tony Nett Brown. She says, great example of treating as a whole. So you're getting a lot of kudos on Facebook. All right. So Flip, my question for you is, how would someone know that they need a holistic coach? Like, what are our cues?
Well, if you're thinking about it, you probably need it, right? If it's already in your mind that, you know, I've tried A, B, C thing and I can't figure out what's going on, then you need to, you know, hang out with somebody that's willing to dig deep into the weeds and figure out, okay, what is going on? Because you can go the pharmaceutical way, and not that there's not a space for that. I am not against Western medicine at all. And I think that's part of being a holistic health coach. How does Western medicine work? How does Eastern medicine work? How does Ayurvedic medicine work? How do all these things come together for, again, the puzzle that we're trying to figure out that's in front of us at that moment? So that's kind of how the mindset that I go into things. So we got to figure out where the issues are. And the thing is, what if the issue is something from your childhood that you've been, you know, it's been in you for so long that the way it's reverberated in your life has been a bad habit. And, you know, how do we get back there into that time, heal that, and then bring it to the present? And an example I have is that, you know, people are like, oh, but that's so much work. And I'm like, well, is the life you're living any less work? You know, if you're already living in some sort of form of discomfort. Another thing I like to point out, and, you know, let's use COVID as an example. Last March, when we actually closed down the world, the whole world actually closed down, how many pictures did we see of the earth reviving itself pretty quickly? Right? Your body is very versatile and vital. And if you allow it, it'll bounce back a lot faster than you think. But you have to get out of your own way and let that happen.